another video on the pork braciole. So, I did the pork braciole, I did it with beans. So it was a bit like a fabada. I hope I pronounced that right. But the beans took forever to cook because there was salt in the tomatoes that I was cooking everything in, so they took forever to cook. So I was kind of thinking, and I put them in like an hour before the pork was cooked, fully tender. And I was kind of thinking, well, actually, we should have put them in at the start, so everything kind of cooked together. And then I was also kind of thinking at the same time that I made the last pork braciole, I took all the spare meat and I made some meatballs. And I was kind of thinking, well, why don't we cook the meatballs in with the pork braciole as well? So it's kind of like a bean stew, like a pork bean stew, with it's going to have some pork braciole in it and it's going to have some meatballs in it as well. And I thought that would be nice with that, and then you can either decide what you want to do. So it could be either just a one pot kind of dish where you've got some different types of meat in there, or it could be like two meals. So you could cook the pork braciole, you could have the pork braciole and beans one day, and then you could have the meatballs another day with some of the sauce type of thing. So just kind of that type of thought, and I wasn't fully happy with it, so I wanted to do it again. So I bought more pork belly. There was about a kilo of pork belly. I've gone through it. I've separated out the layers of meat from the fat. There was about was there a kilo? Was it 2 kilos? No, there must be two. There must have been 2 kilos, because there's about 800 grams worth of mince for the meatballs, and then so there must be this. So it was a 2 kilo joint. So I've separated the layers of meat, got rid of most of the fat, although we want fat because the fat is flavour. And so there's 2 nice bits. We're going to do 2 rolls, pretty straightforward, and then I've probably got too much stuffing, but it doesn't matter. We'll put plenty of stuffing in. So the stuffing ratios change as opposed to what I've kind of got. So I can't remember what it was last time, but this time we've got 50 grams of dried breadcrumbs, we've got 50 grams of cheese, and we've got 25 grams of the chopped parsley. Probably going to be too much stuffing for the amount of meat that we've got, but that's okay, because we'll simply put that stuffing into the meatballs, and that'll be make them nice. So I've got everything I need before I start talking. Yes, that's fine. So we'll give this a mix. I mean, you don't have to put that amount of cheese in. You could put less in, you know, depending on kind of what you want, what your budget is, you know. So this is just cheap Italian hard cheese. You could put less cheese in, you could put more breadcrumbs in, you could put more herbs in. It's not kind of that important. So that there, we've got fat on the outside. We're going to be frying the outside, so we want the layer with the least amount of fat on the inside, because that's not going to break down as much as the fat on the outside. So that, like that, and then what we're going to do is we'll tie it up. There's another video on how to break down the pork belly, but I worry that my videos get too long, and I tend to repeat myself. So there might even be another video after this. But, you know, I think I'm constantly thinking of ideas of different ways of doing things. So then we roll up like that, making a nice sausage shape like that, and then we tie up with string. So I'll quickly go through my cheap's method of tying things up. We want to tie the end because we want to keep the stuffing in there. So start there, and the end bit goes round. So you do like doing a simple knot, which a simple knot is that, but I can't do a butcher's knot. So what I do is I go around again, and then we pull it tight, and then there's enough tension in the string that we can just do that, and then it holds in place. So we don't need, it's not difficult, we don't need someone else to hold the knot there and tie it down. We can just do it by ourselves. So tie there, single knot, cut it off, there we go. So we'll do the other end as well. I'm probably only going to cut this in half so it fits in the pan. So I'll do it again so you can see what I do. Can you see? So the loose end, the end goes round once, and then round again, and then you can pull tight and there's enough tension in the string that it holds it in place. If you only do the knot once, there isn't enough tension, and it can be a bit loose, and you want this to be kind of quite nice and tight. So tie tight like that, and then we're going to go along, do it again, and it'll just hold it in place, and it won't split open and lose all the stuffing. So round once, round again, pull tight. There's plenty of tension in that. Twist it that way, just locks the knot into place, and then just another knot on top, and then that's not moving anywhere. So one more time, because I always worry that people, I see videos and people do things too quickly, and you tend up having to slow things down, and it's, you know, a little bit difficult. So simple knot, round once and round again, pull tight, and then just twist the knot like that, and it'll hold it in place with the tension in the string on the meat, and then that's that. So pretty straightforward knot. You don't need to learn how to do a proper butcher's knot, although interesting and fun skill to have. But I still haven't learnt it. So we'll carry on. I'll stuff that one, we'll wrap it all up, and that will be that. Yes, actually no, because I'm forever having to pause videos and sticky hands and all that kind of stuff. So we'll do that one, but then we'll just see how much stuffing we need on this one. So that side's got more fat in it, so that's what we want on the outside, because we're going to fry it off and give it a bit of colour. There's a little bit of a tear in the meat, but that's fine there. So stuffing here. We'll have a little bit of stuffing left over, but that's fine. That can go into the meatballs. So, kind of a good amount of stuffing. I'm not normally with braciole you put in some garlic as well, but it just makes me really thirsty, this garlic. So, and you just end up smelling of garlic for a few days. So just be careful. Roll up quite tightly, hold it all in place, and that's that. And then we'll tie that one up. So I don't have to pause the video. Now we'll talk about the stuffing balls. So there's about 800 grams worth of meat, and that's the meat, all the spare meat from the pork belly, all the offcuts, the flappy bits and all that kind of stuff. So about 800 grams worth of meat. There's an onion, it's about 150 grams, and then we'll throw in that stuffing as well, because the stuffing, we're going to put the same ingredients into the meatballs, so that's fine. So then we've got another 50 grams worth of cheese, another 50 grams worth of breadcrumbs, and then there's slightly less parsley, but let's call it 25 grams. So that can go in as well. So that's all going to be stuffing for the meatball. And then an egg. So it's kind of stuffing, meatballs are, it's one of those things, there's different kind of ratios, but as long as you're in the ballpark kind of figure, it's fine. If there was less meat, what I would do is I would have just put in the egg yolk or the white, probably just the white, just to keep it together, rather than a whole egg into half the amount of meat. So there's about 800 grams. If it's 400 grams of meat, I'd just use the egg white, which will hold it all together. You know, rather than just kind of half an egg for a recipe, which kind of seems a little bit either here nor there. But so what this will actually do, because the pork meat's kind of quite fatty, the breadcrumbs will soak up that fat, and it will keep the meatballs will stay juicy, and the egg will just help to bind it together, and the onion will give a bit of flavour. We've got the parsley, we've got the cheese. It'll all just be nice meatballs. Although, and that's just a case of squidging it all together. But you can just buy Italian sausages, take them out of the skins, and use those as meatballs. So you don't have to make your own meatballs. It's just that we've got the spare meat from the pork belly, and it'll make nice meatballs. Otherwise, what I do is I just throw the spare meat in with the tomato sauce that I'm going to cook it all with, and then I'd be like a pork meat ragu. So then, golf ball size, meatballs about so much, so that one there, and then we'll give these a fry off. And my plan is we're going to fry off the pork braciole. That'll be the next bit of the video. We're going to fry that off, and then we're going to cook that in the sauce with the beans, and then a couple of hours before the pork bracioles are ready, we're going to pop in the fried off meatballs. So, because they're not going to take long. I've minced it kind of quite finely, so it's already kind of broken down quite a lot of the toughness of the meatballs. But we'll see how many meatballs we get. I'm going to have to cook it in a bigger pan because there's a lot more today. But this should work very well. But you don't, you couldn't, with that amount of joint of pork, you wouldn't be able to get any more brioles out of it because of the way the meat's kind of made up. But you could just buy pork belly and mince it down and make meatballs, and have meatballs cooked in tomato sauce with beans as well. That would be very nice. So you wouldn't have to actually faff around with the braciole. You could just make a rough tomato sauce and then cook the beans in it. And then when the beans were getting to the stage where they were going to take maybe another couple of hours to cook, you could then just throw in the meatballs, fried off meatballs, and then that would be very nice. Anyway, so you get the idea. Pick them out. I'm not seasoning the pork. The tomato sauce is going to be seasoned, and pork's kind of quite salty anyway, so it doesn't need the same kind of seasoning that other meats do. And it's also got the cheese in as well, which is quite a salty, hard Italian cheese. So that's that. We'll carry on making those. We'll tie those up, and then we'll come back when we're frying things off and talk about the tomato sauce. Let's fry off some meat. So actually in the pan it is a bit of rendered down fat from the pork belly, if you don't like waste. So we're just going to put these in here, give them a bit of colour, render some of that fat down on the outside, give it a bit of colour, and I'll add a bit of flavour as well. And well, we might as well fry some meatballs at the same time as well. We're not going to be cooking, the meatballs aren't going to go at the same time as the pork bracioles, but we might as well fry them off at the same time as well to do with a bit more fat. Get more fat in there. And then, so tomato sauce, it's pretty straightforward. It's 2 cans of tomatoes, 400 gram tins of tomatoes, 2 of those. It's just the cheap stuff. I'm all about using the cheap ingredients. You can, these are just the basic ones from the supermarket. You can use, by all means, a better quality tin tomato. That's entirely up to you. I'm not judging, but I also kind of want to show that you can get really nice food from using the kind of basic stuff. So it's there's 800 grams worth of tomatoes. We might need to put another tin in there. I haven't just kind of quite decided yet. There's kind of quite a lot of meat and beans. We might need some more tomato. So at the moment, 2 tins of tomatoes, about 300 grams worth of chopped onion, 300 grams worth of chopped carrot, and a celery stick, about 100 grams. A little bit of salt. Sauteed all the vegetables together, added the tomatoes, given it a bit of puree, because we kind of want a thinner sauce. And we're going to put and then there's 500 grams worth of, these are white kidney beans, but I think they might actually be cannellini beans, and just been labelled something differently, but they're going in as well. So we'll kind of see what kind of volume we've got. We might need to add some more tomatoes, we probably will. We might need to add some more water, but that's all fine. So give these a bit of a turn over, turn the heat a little bit. We want a better colour on than that. And that. So bring the tomato up to, I think, are we going to put another tin? Yeah, we're going to need another tin of tomatoes. There's no to worry about it. Prepared as ever. Packing out as usual, you know. So, the beans, because there's salt in this, the beans are going to take quite a while. You could just buy tins of pre-cooked beans if you wanted, but I just think if we're cooking everything together, then all the flavours mix and meld together. So that's better type of volume. So, meat's going to fry off. Then we're going to add the bracioles into this. We're going to cook the bracioles take about 5 hours to cook on a really slow temperature. I'll show you what I mean by slow temperature when we kind of get there. And the beans are going to take about 5 hours as well. because it's got a bit of salt in the water. So, but we've got no rush. It's a nice low and slow dish. So we're going to cook the beans and the pork braciole for about 3 hours, and then the last couple of hours with the cooking, then we're going to throw the meatballs in. The meatballs going to take a couple of hours, so it's going to cook for about 5 hours all in all. Maybe a little bit longer, but I wouldn't have thought anything less. So we'll get some nice colour on those, moving things around, and then we'll put it all in the pan, bring it up to a boiling temperature, and then we'll turn it right down, and that'll be the next part of the video. But as you can see, it's getting that nice bit of colour, rending some of that fat down on the outside, getting some flavour in there. Easy peasy. Right, so we're up to temperature. It doesn't want to be boiling or simmering any more than that. 2 little blips of bubbles, probably a little bit lower as well. You don't want to boil the meat. What will happen is it will toughen up and it becomes stringy. So just once it's up to temperature, just a slow heat. Keep an eye on it. Look at every 20 minutes, half an hour. Just keep an eye on it, just so it's not cooking too much or cooking too less. So meatballs have been fried off in the pan, and the braciole was fried off in the pan as well. We've got some crusty bits. Let's not waste them. A little bit of water, and then we'll just get those tasty crunchy bits off the bottom of the pan, and then we'll add that to the beans and the pork, and we'll get even more flavour. We don't want to waste anything. Any kind of flavour that we can get our hands on is a good thing. So off, and then nearly in the pan, like that. I drained off the fat, the excess fat, so that's okay. And then this time I will remember to put in some thyme in the pan as well. So look, just a little bunch of thyme, and I've got some parsley stalks as well. We'll put those in as well, just to, instead of wasting them, it'll just give it a little bit extra flavour. So that's fine for the moment. Give it a check in half an hour, see how it's doing. It might need to move to a smaller gas jet. Pork has now had 3 hours, and the skewer's going in nice and easily. So that's going to be almost ready. Well, not almost ready, but we're going to give it. We're going to put the pork meatballs in now, and we'll give it another 2 hours cooking. So we just need to kind of make a bit of room so the braciole can come to the top. The beans, how do the beans feel? Excuse fingers. Yeah, the beans are fine. And we need to taste as well. So now is a good time to put salt in. That much, which seems like a lot, but there's a lot of beans and there's a lot of meat in there. So give that a stir around. So it was 1 meatball, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We'll remember 10, that's dead easy. So squish those down to the bottom. Well, not squish, but push them down to the bottom. Put the bracioles on top, like that. Move those herbs. The herbs could actually come out now, but not just yet. And then get that braciole there out of the way, and that one there out of the way. You need to completely submerge these meatballs in the sauce and the beans. So 1, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 25. That's a good number, is that? I was actually thinking as well, I mean, there's no difference in flavour profile of the bracioles and the meatballs, but if you wanted to make it a little bit more child friendly, then you give the kids meatballs and you give the adults the bracioles. And kids generally eat things like meatballs, but they might be put off by something like a braciole. So you could fool them into having something just a little bit more special. Not that parents do anything like that, but anyway, so there we go. Right. Give that a move around. Give it a blast of heat for 10 minutes, just to start the meatballs getting up to a good temperature, and then a couple of hours, and then all the meatballs have cooked all the way through, nice and tender. The bracioles have even more tender, and the beans will be lovely and cooked. At last we are cooked. So 5 hours, something like that. The bracioles have been in for the full 5 hours. The beans have been cooking for the full 5 hours. The bracioles are now super tender, and the meatballs have been in for a couple of hours, so they're all nice and tender. Let's have a look at the meatball. We'll just cut into them, and then we'll get out a braciole as well. So I'll get out that one. I'm not prepared because I haven't got any scissors. I've got some scissors somewhere, and they've been washed up. Found them. Right in front of me as always, so no one wants to eat a bit of string. So whip off the bit of string, just be careful with your fingers. Not the best pair of scissors. Not my kitchen scissors anyway. These are the ones that I use for anything and everything, but they're clean, so we're alright. Use the tipsy fingers, you're not going to burn them too much. Out of the way. Bit of cloth. Nope, it's gone somewhere. Don't know where it's gone. Doesn't matter. So, cut into the meatball, nice and tender, nice and juicy still. That's delicious. And then we'll just cut this on a jaunty angle, see how it's come out. Super tender. Look at that. Right, so that's a success. So from this, we deduce that if we're going to make the braciole with beans, the beans need to go in and cooked at the same time as the braciole. And if you want to add some meatballs to it, they take a couple of hours. If you were just wanting to cook the offcuts from the meat, I'd put those in at the start, so it'd be like there'd be chunks of meat in there like a beef ragu. You don't actually have to. I mean, it's probably a little bit too much of a faff to make the bracioles for most people. You could just put in great big chunks of belly pork and the meatballs. You know, make some meatballs and the belly pork, and that would be absolutely delicious. And some chorizo as well. That would be lovely. So it'd make it a little bit like Fabada, even though you kind of Fabadas kind of need some paprika in. But as a as a porky beanie stew, absolutely delicious and very economical. I kind of work out the costs, but extremely tasty. I mean, I kind of think delicious. You know, I kind of like it's a winner as that one. Yeah, so it's made lots. I'm going to have to give some of that away, but a success. Yes, I'm extremely happy. I haven't tasted. Maybe I should taste. That's delicious as well. It's all delicious. I'm going to enjoy eating that. But there you go. I finished eating. So from something that I wasn't 100% happy with, we've changed a few things, we've learned something, we've done something different, it's given us some ideas, you know, a rip-roaring success.